Okay, yeah, so today we're really talking about intellectual property and how to commercialize it, really taking your actual research and how to actually bring that to market, and if it actually makes sense to bring that to market. Myself, I'm a Cornell MBA. My own firm is a financial firm. We are CFOs for startup companies. We do all back-end finance as well. So, kind of diving right in. So, the first real question is my idea or my technology, is it something that I can really turn into a viable company or a viable product? And then secondly is, if that does make sense, can I get an investor to actually back my idea and give me money? So, kind of taking you through that whole process of how to drill down on, like, okay, is this really a viable company? And it really all starts with kind of the revenue or the market. How large is the market that you're going after? And really that starts with, okay, what solution am I solving? What problem am I trying to solve for people? So how do I place a value on my IP is a big question. And it really starts with what the market size is, what the potential revenues are, and how you really get there. Have you done any use cases on the market? How big is the market? Is it B2C? Is it business to consumer, business to business? Really thinking about who your kind of ideal customer is, right? And then, is there any challenge to get to that customer, right? Are there any legal hurdles? Are there any fiduciary hurdles? Are there any regulatory hurdles, especially with biotech and pharma and FDA approvals and those kinds of things? So really thinking about the market size, and then really the next step after market size is there a market fit, right? Do you actually you have this amazing technology, but is it something that people actually want to use? Right, and it's one of the major reasons that startups fail, is because they can't identify that product market fit. And part of that is really doing more research on the consumer end, or on the on the buyer end, whoever's going to be using your technology, is really figuring out, okay, who is my ideal customer, right? And how do I get to that ideal customer? Understanding the customer is critical. Getting customer feedback, and trying to get the MVP, the minimum viable product, to market, or a proof of concept to market as quickly as possible. Yep. Yeah. So really, the difference between the two is really investor confidence, right? So there's something that's been in a research setting, that has data, that has peer reviews. It's something that's a little more. It's definitely more viable than just an idea. Right, so an investor is going to look at that as less risky, right? But at the end of the day, both ideas still need to have that kind of market analysis, right? So even though you've got that, like you've been through the grant process and those various things, you still need to have a commercially viable product. Right? It's really about doing, like, if you have a product, right? It's doing a beta, it's doing a proof of concept, it's getting customer feedback. It's iterations, because the first thing that you bring to market might not be perfect, and it doesn't need to be perfect when you bring it to market. But what you want to do is get you want a feedback loop, so you want to do multiple iterations of whatever your product or service or software is going to be, and then you might find that eventually you're solving a problem that you didn't know you were solving, and so it could have value to another industry. So plan on having other iterations, and maybe even a potential for pivot. I think the important thing is the MVP, the minimum viable product, is very important, to get that to market as soon as possible, to have a proof of concept, right? Just like in the research, you want to have as much data as possible. You want to have as much market analysis as possible. Right, things, you want, obviously you'll never have the perfect product. Steve Jobs is famous for saying that if you're not embarrassed with your first product and worry about it being polished, then then you're lost. So getting it to market quickly is right. So medical devices is a big one. Those prototypes can be very expensive. In terms of other products, I'm trying to think, really it's hard to say, it's hard to put pharma and biotech into an end product, right? Right, that's really coming up with a compound that's gonna figure things out. Yeah, really patents. So patents and software are the big two, right? There's really five big components. There's five major components for IP, but patents are the most straightforward, I think, in terms of from a research perspective into how to turn that into a patent. Sure. So thinking about a career in entrepreneurship, if you're not sure if you want to pursue a job or pursue your own company, definitely take advantage of the resources of your university. A lot of universities now have an entrepreneurship wing or some kind of resource hub or labs for that matter. So start there, no question. Then there's other local resources like the SBA, Small Business Association. Some really good resources on their website. SCORE is kind of a subset of the SBA. They do a lot of workshops, so if you want to do a workshop on finance or on healthcare or on other small business issues, that's a good place to start. There's a number of incubators. There's Techstars. You can Google incubators in Boston and Cambridge. There's a ton of them. Some are industry specific. Green Labs is another big name. Networking events like the Venture Cafe on Thursday is a great place to go. So really, finding out about the industry that you want to penetrate is a big deal. So network, go to events, startup events, go to industry specific events. Talk to people, get an idea for the industry, what the hurdles are, what some of the issues are, and just rely on as many resources as possible, get as much information as specific as possible to the industry that you want to enter, especially if it's an industry you don't have expertise in. Step one is really talking with a patent attorney, getting a specialized attorney, talking about how do I, now that I have this technology or this idea, how do I protect it? And then once it's protected, how do I then bring that to market, right? So step one is kind of, use, university resources, like MIT and other universities have a patent and a licensing office. They can help with that, providing an attorney or suggesting an attorney. And then the second step is really, okay, how do I take that patent and make a viable commercial business? So that's yeah. Okay, so how do you place a value on your IP? There's a number of different ways to get there. The first question you want to ask is, what's the potential market size, right? Is my solution, is my technology going to support a big enough market? And then, if you've done any research and done use cases, are there gaps in the market that you can, take advantage of? Are there existing competitors in the market? And how are you different? How are you better? Are there significant risks? Legal, legislative, regulatory. So those are the questions you want to get to. What's my ideal customer, and is that market sustainable for business? And then it goes on to kind of product market fit. Do I have something that people want? A, and B, will they be willing to pay for it? Beta testing is very important. You're going to run into different feedbacks from customers, from testing. You might have multiple iterations of your product. You might even pivot. You might even find a solution for a different industry that you weren't even thinking of as well. So then the really key questions after that is, all right, does this technology enable me to create a viable business? Is this business now scalable to the point where if I have to go get external funding, is this something that an investor is going to put their money in and think they can get their money back? So in terms of taking that now IP, so now you need a business plan and a business pitch in order to get that funding. So then the $1 million question is, how much money do I ask for? So the real key now is trying to figure out, okay, how do I take my technology and get a minimum viable product? How long is that going to take me? And then resources is the other key element. So if you make a list of resources, right, do I need more R&D? Do I need lab space? Do I need to hire an engineer? Do I need to hire, other people? Right, and then you can start to assign, make like a laundry list, and you can assign a value to each, and that'll give you a general idea of how much money it's going to take you and how much time it's going to take you to get your product, get your idea to an actual proof of concept, something that you can actually test and, and figure out your product market fit from there. So, investors are going to ask questions like, how long is it going to take to get your proof of concept? How long before the first sale actually happens after you've done the proof of concept and the testing? Right, they're going to want to know how much it's going to take, how long it's going to take, how much money it's going to take, and actually if you can deliver on that. Sure. So product market fit. So this is one of the most difficult concepts. And tons of startups struggle with it. It's one of the major reasons that startups fail is that they don't ever achieve the product market fit. So you can have the best idea or the best product ever, but if you don't have an audience, if you don't have people that are going to use it, it doesn't matter what your execution is. If it's fantastic, there's no market. There's no business. So the key to product market fit is really testing. It's doing beta testing, getting customer feedback. So even if you're giving your product or service away up front, that customer feedback is very key. You want to learn. You might be addressing a problem that no one wants to, that no one needs fixing, or maybe you're missing something that a lot of people want. So it's those little iterations, and you might even pivot at some point, completely pivot, when you find out that when you're actually drilling down on the market that the needs have changed, or there's a bigger gap in the market that you found, or there's a myriad of reasons. So some of the bigger key questions are, does this technology enable me to create a viable business? And is the business scalable enough where an external investor would be interested to put their money in and get a solid return? So really it's two things. It's figuring out the cost, how much it's going to cost you to get from idea or post research to an actual MVP or proof of concept. So there's one section is the cost. The second is really the market size and the revenue. Is the market big enough where, say, a 10% market share, 20% market share is going to cover the costs, just cover those basic costs for you to create the product, or is there a huge market where an investor would be very interested to get multiples on their money? So figuring out if there's an actual market just to cover the cost is one, and if there's an actual market size that can cover the cost and investment, those are key. So moving from an academic or research background into kind of an entrepreneurial background, or the entrepreneurial space is, there's definitely a big learning curve. Whatever you're not specialized in, the best way to attack that would be to grow your team, right? So if you're specialized in engineering or research, you want to bring on somebody that might be good in sales and marketing, somebody that's good in finance, because you want to concentrate on what you do best and how that grows your business. And from an investor perspective, one of the things they look at for risk is how good is the team, right? Is it a full team? Can they all execute? So where the learning curve is steep, you should bring on someone that can help you, whether that's a team member, a mentor, because trying to figure out all the different, the legal, the finance, the very basics, it's really hard to do that, wear too many hats at once. So the moral is to have a really good team. So the $1 million question that I get from a finance perspective for folks trying to commercialize startup businesses, how much money do I ask for? So now I'm post-grant, I'm trying to make my company commercial, and I'm going to be looking to investors. So the key is to figure out, okay, what resources do I need to get me from the idea stage, now I have now a protected patent, to, all right, here's my first product, here's my first proof of concept. So figuring out those resources, do I need more R&D? And from R&D, is that equipment? Is that, do I need lab space? Do I need to hire an engineer? Do I need to hire other personnel? Do I need to use contractors? And it's really making a laundry list of, here are all the resources that I'll need, and here's a dollar amount that's assigned to each one of those, to kind of give you an idea of how it's going to cost me X amount of money to get it from here to here, and that's how much money you're going to ask the investor for. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of unknowns. It's okay to basically guess, as long as it's an educated guess and you can kind of articulate your thinking. Right? There's no right or wrong answer, really. It's all about a guess, and that's how you should approach an investor. Another key question is figuring out how big is the market. How do I project from in a business plan or a pitch deck? How do I project what I think my revenues are going to be? So really, it's about thinking about, okay, here's my ideal customer. So how do I reach my ideal customer? Is it direct sales? Is there a distribution channel? How much would those customers be willing to pay for the service or the product? Trying to project your revenue or your sales, it's all about thinking about your ideal customer. Okay, how do I get to my ideal customer? Is it through direct marketing? Is it through a distribution channel? Is it going to take, do I need to hire salespeople to get to that person? How much is it going to cost me to kind of get to those customers? And then how big is the market, right? How, if I can get a 50% market share, basically you say, okay, here's the total. When speaking with external investors, right, if you're now looking for funds to kind of scale your company, grow your company, investors are a quirky bunch. Money is definitely difficult to come by these days. So when you have, as long as you are you're further along, if you have a lot of research, if you have a lot of data, your company is a lot more valuable than another company, say, that just has an idea stage. So your company, from an investor perspective, is looked at as less risky. So it's much easier to get funding when you're less risky. It's also much easier to get funding the closer you are to a prototype or a proof of concept. So you also have a lot more leverage there. So when you're negotiating how much of the company you might give up to an investor for X amount of money, the further along you are with a minimum viable product or proof of concept, the better.